Taoiseach, on Saturday, Spain, as you outlined, applied for and was granted what's being referred to as a non-economic bailout. A bailout, in other words, for its toxic banking system for which its citizens will be on the hook. I think all of this is very eerily familiar to us here. It's also now clear that there have been no crumbs from the table for this state. So, Taoiseach, if your strategy had been to wait and see what the Spanish get, clearly that strategy failed, and failed badly. Last week you told the Dáil that there was a debate in Europe about direct funding of the banking system, and in fact you went so far as to almost claim this as your big idea. But it hasn't happened. So, Taoiseach, I think it's fair to conclude yet again that you failed to stand up for Ireland's interests. Once again, it is Frankfurt's way. And on the promissory note, you tried, of course, in March to pull the wool over the people's eyes in this regard, but we know that that banking debt remains. The technical paper, which you incredibly now tell us you haven't had sight of or word of, was actually due in February. These matters are, as you say, complex, but they are also urgent. So where is the technical paper? When will it be published? It's certainly a long time coming. And what's your overall plan, Taoiseach? You see, it's all very well for you to point the finger at Fianna Fáil and tell them that there's no files in the Taoiseach's office to inform you as to the thinking for past decisions.
Question, please.
But you can't very well do that and then refuse to give this Dáil and the citizens of this state a clear indication of your strategy in relation to the promissory note and the overall banking debt. So what's the game plan, Taoiseach, or is there one? Maybe there isn't.
Thank you. Taoiseach.
First thing, in the absence of your leader, I reminded him one day when he said you're trying to pull the wool over our eyes. I said that's the balaclava effect, we call that down here. Maybe you weren't here that day. The position here is that the government have a strategy, and that strategy is focused on the re-engineering of our debt position for longer-term, lower interest rates. That's been set out by the Minister for Finance and by every other minister in the government for quite some time. The first element of the promissory note negotiations that have taken place, as you're aware, has been to shove that out to 2025. Clearly, I don't claim credit for the discussions that now take place in Europe about the ESM, though the government here were actually one of the first to table that, which has now become a central focus of the discussions of many leaders about how to deal with the European response to the European problem. Ireland, as Deputy McDonald is aware, have a year longer than Spain to reach the 3% reduction, to reach the 3% target. And Spain obviously has its own challenges, which were set out by the Prime Minister when he made connection about the 100 billion loan for the bank position in Spain just last weekend. So Ireland's position here is to continue to negotiate complex issues with the Troika with a view to having a re-engineering of that debt problem brought about, which will be of ease to all our people, which was caused initially by the incompetency of a previous government. So from that perspective, there's a clear strategy, Deputy MacDonald, and that is to continue to negotiate to where we can reach an agreement that that target will be achieved, lower interest rates longer term. When you say that the strategy was wait and see, far from it. As you're aware, Ireland have been in a programme for quite some time now, and we have renegotiated elements of that programme successfully, with two ministers engaging with the Troika. I'd remind you that the IMF, the European Commission, the head of the European Commission, Commissioner Rehn, have all stated that Ireland will continue to have support in the context of negotiations to reduce our debt problem and to bring this to a conclusion. And I'm very happy to note Commissioner Rehn's strong and clear statement yesterday. And you can take it, Deputy MacDonald, that the government will follow that through to bring to a conclusion, hopefully successfully, our objective of having that debt burden reduced on the backs of our taxpayers and our citizens.
Deputy MacDonald.
Well, Taoiseach, I take absolutely no comfort from your comments there. You tell us that decoupling the banking debt from the sovereign is the way to go, to use your term. You've told us repeatedly that you're seeking to re-engineer the promissory notes. You tell us that you're negotiating, making phone calls and so on. But you haven't delivered. In fact, the only piece of re-engineering that you've actually delivered will cost the taxpayer an additional €90 million. Now, if you consider that a success, heaven forbid that we ever witness one of your failures. I've asked you a very direct question in respect of the promissory note. I've asked you a direct question in respect of this technical paper. We want to know when that will be concluded, when it will be published, and when this government will move definitively to get a result from this state, because it strikes me that there is no strategy. You're waffling, you're sort of fluffing around, hoping against hope that something will break in Greece or Spain to save your blushes. That won't happen. What's required here is decisive and assertive action, and you have proved utterly incapable of that. So forget about your smart remarks back to me across the floor of this House. Please get to your feet and tell us when the technical paper will be concluded, when it will be published, and when precisely the taxpayers and the citizens of this state will have relief from debts that were never theirs.
Thank you. Taoiseach.
It's interesting to note that you are very clear and you are very decisive, and your comment all through the referendum campaign was that the EU and the IMF should leave this country and take their money with them. That's the comfort you gave to the Irish citizens, to those who rely on this programme for the running of the services of our country and for the payment of the salaries of those who work and for those who are on social protection. So just as you live in fantasy land with your Sinn Féin economics, so too you want that to be dealt with. Now, you asked me when is the promissory note going to be published. I can't answer you that question because it's not completed. When is it going to be concluded? I can't answer you that question because the negotiations are still ongoing with the ministers and the officials, both from Finance, Public Expenditure and Reform and the Troika. I hope that that's clear. I cannot give you a date for that because they're not concluded, and therefore I can't tell you when it's likely. Yeah. The strategy is very clear, and for the third time for you, it is to bring about a re-engineering of the debt problem that this country has inherited, to have longer-term repayments and lower interest rates, which will be of interest both to our economy and to all our citizens. I hope that that's very clear to you.